Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan here for another Inside the Birds podcast. We wish everyone great health and safety. In this episode, we're going to go through some issues that we think are facing the Eagles, both for the present and the future. It's the same things we want to talk about, but as Adam and I often talk about, contracts, performance, and aging, they often tie together, and what someone does now impacts what decision might lay ahead a year or two down the road. So we're going to get into that specifically with wide receiver and the offensive line. We have some questions we're going to answer. So ready to get back into it. Want to remind everybody really quickly, don't forget about our Inside the Birds YouTube page, where you can find recent interviews with former Eagles left tackle Trey Thomas, former Eagles president Joe Banner. We've got one with with NFL film senior analyst Greg Cosell, as well as other unique content. Our Football at 4 on 97.3 ESPN in South Jersey is posted there Monday through Friday, every day around 5 o'clock, and you can catch that as well. So, Adam, you ready to dive into this and go through some of the positions that we have some concerns?
Yeah, so here's why I brought this stuff up. I was doing research. You and I have kind of gone over both sides of the football, kind of what our initial 53 looks like. By the way, those are former shows we've done in the last 4 to 6 weeks where we go over both sides of the football. We went over the coaching staffs of offense and defense. And I was looking for some new content. I started noticing a trend here. You had brought it up on a couple shows about the challenges of the roster for next year, which we talked about the cap. But the other thing is depth. And then what's the position going to look at 21, 22, and 23? I'm like, oh, boy, they have a bigger problem at receiver than I thought, and we're going to get into that. And also in the offensive line, the center position. So there's a lot more to get through here than I initially thought. And I was like, you know what? This is going to take up an entire show. This is way more detail than I thought. And our listeners and viewers love the detail. They love the inside stuff. And boy, folks, we've got a lot of it tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the two positions we're going to talk about, they're always kind of big positions from a fan standpoint. First one being wide receiver. And we wanted to focus a little bit on Deshaun Jackson because he's such an interesting kind of player, Adam. There's really not too many guys in the league like him. And the speed that he has is basically unprecedented. Well, not unprecedented, but there's just not a lot of guys who have his kind of speed at his age still in the NFL. But he is coming off the sports hernia surgery, and he has been throughout his career someone who's missed games because of soft tissue injuries. First, outside of seeing videos on social media, I mean, it looks like he's running. I mean, it's been a long time since he had the groin repair. Do you have any info on just where he is as far, like if OTAs were going on, would he be participating?
Oh yeah, 100%. He's been Geoff. He's been totally healthy for a while. That has not been the issue. He would have tried to have they beat Seattle, try to play the next week.
That's right.
Just give him whatever he could. But, oh, yeah, he's been 100% for months. That's not been the issue here. So a couple things happened really since the season ended. The first thing is he had an option bonus. They rolled it over.
Right.
So what happens is if he's on the roster in 2021, and that's something we're going to get into in a minute, that means 22 and 23 will void. There's no guaranteed money past the season. His salary is guaranteed this season. That's not the issue. The issue is what happens after the season.
Right.
Well, speaking of next, in 2021, here are the problems that they have. Jeffrey is unlikely to be with the team. He looks like he's going to be, as we've been saying for months now, he's probably going to be on the team this season. It would take something pretty interesting. I just don't see a scenario where we could come back in 2021, but let's assume for the moment that he's off. Deshaun will be under contract in 2021. Jalen Reagor will be starting. Other than that, Geoff, Goodwin's contract's up. Greg Ward's contract's up. John Hightower, he needs to make the team first. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Geoff, as you know, and our listeners know, he barely contributed, largely because he was hurt. They're going to learn a lot about him this season. But my question to you would be, what kind of answers do they have at receiver in 2021 and beyond?
No, I think we have those questions this year. You don't have to wait till 2021.
Right.
I think you and I are both fans of Jalen Reagor, the pick we felt, and the more we talked to people around the league, it was not a reach at all. There were people that liked him at the bottom of the first round. So we expect him to be a good player. But you know what? we may have expected Nelson Aguilar to be a good player several years ago, and we saw how long it took for him to finally, the light switch to kick in. It took 2 years of failing and moving to the slot. So we have to find out about Jalen. You mentioned John Hightower and Quez Watkins, 5th and 6th round pick. Statistically, the odds against them making the team are very low. Now, there's hope for Hightower because they said in other drafts he might have been a 3rd or a 4th rounder. So maybe he's a little bit better than the 5th round label. Still has to get out there and play. And obviously, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is a guy that everybody's hoping makes that jump from year 1 to year 2. But who knows? So right now, you're only given is Deshaun, and he's coming off that groin surgery. And so you have a very, I want to say like almost topsy-turvy like look at the wide receiver position. You have a very good veteran in Deshaun who you just have to hope stays healthy, and then a lot of young guys who are just not proven.
Right. Now here's the thing with Deshaun. They're going to see what he can do this season. It was always thought when he had his contract negotiated at the time of the trade from Tampa Bay that this is going to be a 2-year relationship. And they, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside would be a factor. Obviously, they had other players on. They were hoping Nelson Aguilar would work out. He didn't. They were hoping Alshon would be with them long term. Then he had the issue. He had the awful injury last season. There's some other stuff which we've outlined, and fans know about that stuff. The question is now in 2021, what are they going to learn this season that's going to guarantee them that this position's set for 2021? And as you just said, let's look at 2020. Deshaun and Reagor are basically right now your 2 starters. After that, I don't think we really know very much about this group.
Do you think it's possible that Deshaun, if he had when we did our last ITP TV, we went through fantasy projections, and obviously when we do that, we don't talk injuries. We just assume if they stay healthy, this is what they can get. Sure. I think we both felt that Deshaun, if he played at least 13 or 14 games, can get at least 800 yards and something around 40, 45, 50 catches, right?
Yep.
If that's possible, he's sort of a unicorn because he's going to be 34 years old. And I don't know how many other guys in the league who are 34 has the kind of speed he has. If his speed is still even close to what it normally is, doesn't that make a pretty viable argument for him to come back as at least a specialist in 2021?
Now, okay, let me take what you just said. Here's what. Well, first of all, there's no way he's coming back in 2021. If he only plays 10 games, well, he's not coming back at $8.2 million. That's his salary.
No, they would have to redo the deal. Obviously.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Now, off that, you could make the argument if he plays 12 or 14 games, not only will he come back, you may or may not pay him $8.2 million. By the way, that none of that money is guaranteed. But Deshaun has a good enough relationship with their front office, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, with the organization. The stuff that happened 6 years ago with Chip Kelly, though Deshaun has a chip on his shoulder, no pun intended, about what happened 6 years ago. I can't believe it's been 6 years, but it has been.
Yeah.
Since he left. The fact of the matter is he's back. They know him. He knows them. He takes his fitness really very seriously. As a matter of fact, I'm told he's flying in his trainer this coming week. They're going to work out. He lives in Tampa. So you know what? The bottom line is he's taking it very seriously. And he's making his case. If he could just stay on the field, it's hard to quantify amount of games for him to come back in 2021, or at least get them to consider it. But you've said it here, and you're right. He's so unique. He's as I said before, it's probably Randy Moss, the best deep threat in NFL history. You could make your argument Deshaun's number 2, even at his advanced age. Really hasn't lost anything. You just wonder, can he stay on the field? But he takes his fitness so seriously. I'd mentioned before, I think on our last show, that if you look at his lower body, his thighs, way more developed. When you and I were covering the Eagles when Deshaun was a rookie in 08 and in 09 and 10. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're like pencils, his legs. He's much more developed. I never thought I'm not saying he's 190. He's probably around 178, 180. Well, he was 169, 168 as a rookie. So look, he's taken seriously. He certainly has a lot to prove, and I know he's got a chip on his shoulder. So let's see what happens. But again, just why did I bring this stuff up? Because when I examine the receiver position by contracts and by performance, there's really, other than Jalen Reagor, Jalen Reagor is the only certainty not only be on the football team, unless he doesn't know what he's doing in the season. He's starting in 2021. Other than that,
Right.
there are no answers here, man. None.
Is there a player, before I, kind of go through what you were just saying there?
Yeah.
Is there a player that you can think of whose best asset was speed, who was able to play into his mid to late 30s without losing what he does? Like without losing that speed that makes him effective. And it doesn't have to be a wide receiver.
Moss lost it. By the way, Moss lost it. Remember he went to Tennessee.
Yeah, God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
But he wasn't even solely dependent on speed. He had size, he had ball track.
Correct.
What about Darrell Green, the cornerback? He was
the Hall of Famer.
40,
right?
Late
30s. Yeah. But you're right. It's very rare for a player like Deshaun or someone who's very fast to play into their mid 30s. It just you lose it. You're right. You're absolutely right. Plus, he's had so many injuries, and you're right on soft tissue. Now the question is, if he plays well this season, does he play into their plans of 2021? To sum this up, I say yes, but not again at $8.2 million. He's not going to play a full season. We know that.
Well, yeah, I think the point you made before, though, about not really knowing about the young guys, right? If Jalen Reagor shows that he's a legit player,
okay,
John Hightower, by the end of the year, makes enough progress where you can see he can play in the league, even as
hang on, you're assuming he's on the team.
I am assuming he's on the team. I mean, I'm going to assume even if he doesn't make the team, he's going to be on the practice squad.
Well, I would think someone would claim him, but yeah, go ahead.
A 5th round pick? I don't know.
But as you said, you're right. He should have gone higher.
Right.
He needs to fill out physically. He's a little bit thin.
Right.
But so go ahead. So you're saying if
Hightower, if Arcega-Whiteside likewise makes some good developments, and you feel good about those 3 wide receivers, then really bringing Deshaun back doesn't become a necessity. It becomes, again, it could just be as a role player or as a deep play specialist, third, whatever Marquise Goodwin might be for the team this year, perhaps. But if none of these guys pan out and Deshaun has a good year, it almost puts more pressure on the team to have to bring him back. And Deshaun might look at that number that he's owed and said, well, I want something closer to that $8 million.
Yeah, well, but he's got to play a lot of games. He's got to produce.
Definitely.
They did him a real solid. They've been really good to him. This is a pretty good contract that they got done for him at the time of the trade. And as I said, they've had a good relationship with Deshaun, and they want him to finish his career as an Eagle. But the reason why I brought the subject up is I just don't think they have a lot of answers. The Jeffrey situation, it's way more, and it's probably partially my fault. I was pretty excited about the speed that they added, and look, we outlined this at the combine where this was going. We nailed it. We said they were not going to sign a free agent receiver. They did not. They did trade for one in Goodwin during the draft. But you know what? When you don't have, it's one thing if they would have signed Brashad Perriman to a 1-year deal, and if he did well, bring him back for 21 and maybe 22. Right. But they don't have any of that. And I have no problem with you going with younger players, but they don't have any answers past this season. And what I want to do to finish this off is say that, folks, if Hightower doesn't make it and Arcega-Whiteside doesn't show progress, they may have to rebuild this position again with just Reagor. Obviously, he's coming back. And then after that, who knows?
Well, there's going to be all sorts of storylines at the end of the year if that situation were to unfold, because as we know, the Eagles have had a real issue drafting at wide receiver over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And if none of these guys were to progress, these rookies that we're talking about, or JJ Arcega-Whiteside, that's going to come back on Howie. So that'll be already people getting mad who are already mad at him now for his failure to maybe draft or develop. And Aguilar is not his fault. That was, I believe, Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you're the team. You're the face of the team. That will come back on him. But I do think one thing that might factor into this, Adam, is now you look at your tight end position, which is strong and has provens with Ertz and Goddard. And we keep wondering if there's going to be room for both Zach Ertz to get a extension after Kittle signs his and be among the highest paid tight ends in the league, and for Dallas Goedert at the end of this year to sign his second deal. And we've said maybe that's not necessary if you have this great if your wide receivers come through and you want to go back to being more 11 personnel because you really hit on these receivers, then maybe one of these guys is a trade piece at tight end. Or to your point, maybe you feel more empowered to have both of these tight ends under contract for a longer time with high salaries because your wide receivers are deficient and you're going to be in 12 personnel.
Yeah, well, that brings up another subject. The success at receiver will ultimately determine what the future is from a macro level on offense, whether in terms of 11 or 12 personnel. And I'll be honest with you, we don't know because, again, don't know about Jackson for 21. He needs to stay healthy. He could come back. He's under contract for 21, but it's going to come down to how he contributes. Hightower needs to make the team and show, as you said, that he could contribute. Marquise Goodwin got his contract cut. It's down to 1 year, and he's making very little money. He's on a prove-it deal. Greg Ward's contract's up. He will be a exclusive rights free agent, so they'll ultimately decide whether they want him back. It depends on who he plays. So you make a really good point, which I had not thought of. Folks, think about this. If the Eagles do not do well this year at wide receiver, they're not only they go in 12 personnel heavy, which we thought of anyway, they may have to do that again, Geoff, in 2021.
Yeah.
That could be
the best case scenario is that your wide receivers play well, your tight ends play well, and you have the option of deciding what you want to be beyond multiple. 2020. Yeah. You can be multiple, but you can know where to allocate your funds. So that'll be interesting.
Everything. Good point. I agree with you.
And we're going to learn a lot about Aaron Moorhead this year, the new wide receivers coach. He comes with a lot of acclaim. And so now is a good time to mention, if you missed it, we did do a full breakdown of the Eagles offensive coaching staff and defensive coaching staff in our podcasts last week. So if you haven't checked them out, go ahead and do that on whatever podcast platform you listen to, because I know Adam had some good stuff. I had some good stuff. It's really important to understand not just how these coaches work together to come up with a game plan, but how they coach their own positions and what expertise that they bring. So make sure you check them out.
Right. And with Aaron Moorhead, I talked to a coach who he worked with at Vanderbilt last season. So I put that on there. And what we did is we gave you an idea from our coaching sources and our team sources. Okay, tell us what this guy's good at, what he's not good at. What does he excel at? And we've outlined Doug Peterson now for a year, what his strengths and weaknesses are. We did that with Jim Schwartz and his staff. So as Geoff said, I get you need to, if you really want to learn, we're very honest about it. We kind of put it out there. Don't forget on the ITB TV we did with Trey Thomas, he did a great job of not only outlining Andre Dillard, but actually he was a little bit critical of Jeff Stoutland in that the hand usage with Dillard and the way that he teaches it, just his beliefs.
Right.
It worked. Obviously, whatever Jeff Stoutland's doing is working. But Trey, who did work with Jeff Stoutland under obviously Chip Kelly in 2014 or 15, Trey knows. And look, he was a terrific left tackle. So that is on ITB TV only. We did not podcast it. That is actually most of our interviews, folks. The interviews mostly will only be on YouTube on what we call ITB TV. The Banner and Cosell ones, we did both, but most interviews will only be on there. So check out the YouTube because we appreciate the traffic we're getting on there. We're getting a ton on it lately. It's great.
Yes, we're also approaching 1,000 people in our Facebook community, the Inside the Birds Facebook page. So I think we're up to 950. Let's keep going so we can get to 1,000. That would be a great accomplishment, and we'd really appreciate it.
Yes, and what I tell you before we move on here, Geoff, we're getting between 9,000 and 11,000 listeners per show, not per week, per show.
Yeah. And
you're only talking about 10 to 11% of our listenership is on our Facebook page or message board. Folks, this is where Geoff and I hang out during the week a little bit. So if you want to get your questions answered, go there or go to Apple, our obviously wherever you can put comments and rate and review. We're taking those questions. We've answered all of them. Yep. So we could use some new questions there or on the Facebook message board.
All right, let's talk about the offensive line because that's another position, Adam, where you have a lot of names and I think most people are pretty optimistic about the offensive line. It's been one of the best in the league for the last 5-6 years now. It's been quite a while, but there are question marks for this year that relate to the year after and the year after. Left tackle and center are really interesting. I mean, Jason Kelsey's coming back. He's going to be center. He has managed to stay healthy or at least play through some injuries the last few years, and knock on wood. Because the question I always have is, what would they do if Jason got hurt? Would they move Sayamalu over, or last year they kept Nate Herbig, a rookie free agent, because he's a natural center. This year there's a guy that they really like whose name I have trouble pronouncing. I want to say Luke Juriga. Did I get that
Yes,
correct?
Juriga. Yes, correct.
Juriga. He's a center who I would keep my eye on this year at training camp. But where do you think that they would go there? Because the one thing we know is the team doesn't like to practice guys at multiple. They like to practice them at multiple spots, but then once the season starts, they want him on one spot.
Yeah, so here's the issue that the Eagles have. Herbig was a guard in college at Stanford, and they moved him to center. Keegan Render was a kid out of Iowa who's a guard center. He could do, because he did both at Iowa. He was also an undrafted free agent who spent most of the season on the Eagles practice squad, and he got re-signed for the season. They need to find out about these guys, but again, they're undrafted free agents. Sua Peta is a kid that they'd like to take a look at as well. So what I believe is they're grooming Nate Herbig, at least for this season, to be that guy. As you asked that question, they'd rather not move Isaac Seumalo over, because this is what Jeff Stoutland does not like, to upset the continuity of their offensive line. He's been he's kind of made that clear. And when we talked about Lane Johnson over the last year or so about moving, if Peters got hurt last season, would they move for a long period of time? Would they move Johnson over? The answer is no. They put Dillard in. He didn't obviously play at a high level. He wasn't really ready, but he got some practical playing time. So that was actually good. At least he got in there to get playing time. But the big issue now is going forward, because first up for them is Kelsey. What's the game plan? Because Matt Pryor could play guard. They're good there. If Brooks or Seumalo got hurt, Matt Pryor's your first guy up. Jack Driscoll. Okay, so here's a little nugget I picked up. I've been working on sort of.
I like this kid, by the way.
Yeah, he's got a lot of versatility. He did actually, I'm told, at Auburn take snaps at center. He never played at center, but he took snaps in practice at center. But he projects the Eagles see him as a right tackle and a guard who may work his way in at some point at center. Because they're not on the field, Jeff, there's no way to tell exactly what their game plan would be right now for the immediate future. But over time, he may get snaps at center. But for this season, Herbig's probably going to be that guy. They don't really have anyone, because Herbig last summer was a center. They have not shown any interest in signing a veteran center. But getting back to Driscoll, as we develop this offensive line talk, kind of what the scenarios are. The long term for Jack Driscoll is their 4th round pick. Is probably going to be he's probably going to be a backup guard. I don't think it's going to be right tackle unless Mailata either gets hurt again or he walks after 2021. That's when his contract's up. But obviously they won't let him walk if they could help it. 2021's the final year of his deal. He would be unrestricted, so they're going to have a decision to make then. But Driscoll long term probably is going to be a guard and then center possibly. I don't see he definitely could play right tackle. He played in college. But the question is, the Eagles need to answer this question. Who's going to be Lane Johnson's eventual replacement? Mailata or Driscoll? Is there any way you could keep Jordan Mailata if he's healthy over the next 2 seasons? Going to be tough, because Jeff, if he winds up being healthy for the first time in his career and being on the active roster and playing, and his tape's good, there's zero chance he's back here after 2021. This kid's an absolute freak. They have someone here who's being one of their best draft picks in Howie Roseman's history if this kid makes it, because this kid's a super freak. And by the way, the league's not that. Other teams are aware of what's come out in the media about this kid. So I don't know past 2021 if they know where they're going here. And quite frankly, 21, by contract, Brooks is back because they guaranteed his 2021 salary back in March.
Right.
Past that, Jeff, to finish this off a little bit, I don't know where they go.
Well, I think it kind of continues to make this year a referendum year on Andre Dillard, right? I mean, we've already talked about Jason Peters, who is not back. The team has sort of pledged allegiance to Andre Dillard at left tackle, said they used a first-round pick, traded up. But I'd be very interested to see if Mailata stayed healthy and makes the team and doesn't have any back issues. And
he's making the team.
He's making the team. Well, I just meant if he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
If there's any slippage from Andre Dillard, if the team felt comfortable putting Mailata in at left tackle instead of, because at this point is Jason, you wonder if Jason Peters is coming back.
Well, no doubt. But let's put it this way. Okay. I've thought about this, Jason, because I know everyone in the Philly media is running with, well, if Peters is back, he's starting. They're using Jason's words. He says, I'm not going anywhere to be a backup. Well, I'm just telling you, there are no teams right now signing Jason to be a starter. Plenty of teams would love him to be a backup. Because the draft has happened now, his chances of starting somewhere else other than Philly are not very good. That's why he's probably best off coming back here. But the Eagles have this issue where they want Dillard to start. So it's a little bit of a tough call because Jason played well enough. His tape was solid. It wasn't great, but it was solid. At 38 years old, he could still start. You just need to know that he's probably not going to start 16 games if he comes back here because he has an injury history. The Eagles would have to then decide, are they willing to put off Dillard starting another year, Geoff? No one could answer that because they won't answer that. I've asked people who would know.
That means they don't know. That means they don't know.
No. You know what? Everyone thinks, like, I've read some stuff that's out there. It's not that the Eagles don't know. It's, are they willing to know? If Peters comes back, are they willing to tell Jason, you could come back. Here's the money, and Andre's starting. I don't know that they're willing to do that.
So, well, when I say it means they don't know, it means just in their mind, they want Dillard to start, but they're not 100% sure he's going to go out there and dominate the position. So there's that little bit of reticence that even opens the door for Jason Peters to even be in this. Because 9 times out of 10, the Eagles will say, all right, you've reached a certain age, we're going to say goodbye. And I guarantee you, if Andre Dillard had looked like, and I thought he looked okay last year at left tackle. We've detailed that most of his struggles came at right tackle. He had the hands issue.
He had a hands and strength issue. Trey Thomas
out. He had a hand and strength issue. Right. So my point is, if he had looked like he was going to be a no doubt about it future cornerstone left tackle, we wouldn't even be having this discussion about Jason Peters.
Right. But the other thing is with Dillard is he's not getting an off season. If he would have had these OTA reps, I know it's not training camp, but you could see the difference he's made with his hands. You could see his body up close. I'm told he's kept his weight up, but that doesn't mean he's strong enough yet. Until you get your hands on the guy, it's a term that coaches use, until you get him in your building, you don't know.
Right. Hey, to go back to what you said about Jack Driscoll, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. No.
I wanted to make sure the point. A lot of, to me, Driscoll's traits that you mentioned kind of tie in with what and where he's going to play, tie in a lot with the new coaching, the ideas guys like Scangarello, right? Because he ran a 5.01 at the combine. This guy can move, Jack Driscoll. I think it was the 3rd or 4th fastest 40 time for an offensive lineman at this year's combine. And he played at Auburn, which is a very RPO and outside zone heavy offense, the Gus Malzahn offense. So he's a guy who can move laterally really well. And if you think about the Shanahan run schemes, right, the misdirections where you have guards constantly pulling left, right, or you have motion to the left, guards pull to the right, things like that. I think Driscoll really fits those kind of concepts because he can move so well. So could he play center? I remember being told by a personnel source when the Eagles drafted him that they felt that if he had to, they could see him playing center. But I really think they like him as a interior lineman who can get out on the edges. And you know how like Kelsey as a center will be needing those sweeps? I feel like they believe he can be that same kind of exterior run type weapon.
All right, couple more things on Driscoll. He had one of the best broad jumps of any offensive lineman at 9.6. One of the top ones, which shows lower body explosion. His 40 time was 5.02, which he had one of the best 40 times. If you break put it this way, folks, it's extremely rare for an offensive lineman to break a 5 in the 40. Driscoll almost did that. He came a hair close.
5:01, I believe, right?
His official time is 5:02, 5.02.
5:02.
Yep.
My fault.
Pretty close. He's tall. He's also long. I mean, he's 6'4" and 5'8". That's a very good size for a guard. And the analytics work out because he's pretty athletic, as you said. His hand size is decent. You'd like a guard's offensive lineman hand size. You'd like over 10. He's got average hand size, but the bottom line is for a 4th round pick. This is a kind of 4th round pick you're going to get the top end of it. He could wind up starting someday. I wouldn't rule that out, but we're not there yet. Yeah. Again, he hasn't even had OTAs because they don't have any. So,
right.
As I examined the roster, because you and I had examined it about tooth to nail, I wanted to look at some of the outstanding issues and also what's the future here. And I saw the Deshaun contract. Oh, by the way, they rolled over. He had an option, which it doesn't really change very much. But there are 2 dummy years. What's going to happen is with Sean's contract, 22 and 23 are going to be dummy years if he's on the roster 21.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, they're going to learn a lot about Deshaun this season, and they're going to learn a lot about those other receivers. And getting back to offensive line, as we summarize this, they're going to learn more about Matt Pryor, we didn't really talk much about, who's kind of surprised. That Giant game, he played really well. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out about Herbig if he could handle it in training camp, being Kelsey's backup. And Jack Driscoll, I think we just kind of went through this. He's a real important part, and they've got to find out about Mailata. And what they have to find out is, since he didn't play last season, not only where's he at physically, but where's the technique? Where's he at? He's only 23 years old. You love that. But can he be the long-term future at right tackle after Lane's done? They need to kind of know that because Lane's getting up there. He's now 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, Brandon Brooks, he'll be here through 21. That's it for kind of, they could get out of it really easily after 21. It's a great contract he got, a really good one. The language is pretty good, but they have a lot of answers they need to get through here over the next year or so.
All right. Speaking of answers, people have questions. We have answers. We're going to do a little Ask ITB as we move on here. But first, Adam, I got breaking news. DraftKings Sportsbook, yes, that DraftKings, is now offering a mobile casino in Pennsylvania. DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino offers an endless amount of casino games to play, all from the comfort and safety of your home. And right now, all first-time casino players can play up to $200 risk-free for the first 24 hours of casino play. So go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and find the casino games in the top navigation bar to start playing. Options, you want options, choose from slots, blackjack, roulette, table games with live dealers and more. DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino is a legal, safe, and secure gaming app. You can deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Plus, DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino is offering special promotions every day, so be sure to check the app daily. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, Sportsbook and Casino app now, and use promo code ITB to play risk-free up to $200 of casino games for your first 24 hours. That's promo code ITB to play risk-free up to $200 for your first 24 hours of casino play on DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, in partnership with Hollywood Casino and Penn National Racecourse. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we got questions. So we're going to bring in Hunter Brody, and Hunter's going to ask away.
How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
All right.
So Pat actually has 2 questions, but we'll start with this one here. Should the Eagles pick up a veteran running back like Devontae Freeman or Shady? Are they a lock to make the team, even if they are outplayed in training camp by any pair of Clement, Holyfield, Warren, or Killens? Obviously, this isn't the most likely situation, but I think there's a greater possibility than people think that some of these guys can contribute based on the success of the Eagles running back committees in recent years.
Well, Killens is a changeup. He's really small. I don't think Killens will play into it. I don't see him making it. They're interested in him, but Mike Warren, he's got good size. He's much bigger than Killens. He's a kid from Cincinnati. I don't see it. Hunter, Pat, Geoff, I think with the way the Eagles look at this thing, if Miles Sanders gets hurt, they need an answer. Corey Clement would have been that answer had he not been injured the last 2 seasons. Corey Clement's on a 1-year deal. He decided to sign early and not test free agency. By the way, Corey changed agents. So do, by the way, another little note, Miles Sanders changed agents recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm surprised by that. Yeah. Corey changed somewhere around the draft. He changed. Miles Sanders did within the last week or so.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see I don't know why you would do that while you're under your rookie contract, but nevertheless, Corey decided to not, he would have gotten the same contract. Well, let's put it this way. Corey signed now, no guaranteed money. He's a 1-year prove-it deal. They don't have an answer, folks. They don't have an answer. Boston Scott, they really love. He's a changeup. He's at best, if they don't sign a veteran, it's 7 to 10 touches a game. That's what he is. If they have a veteran behind Sanders, it's probably going to be less than that. But Geoff, again, if Sanders gets hurt, what is their answer?
I don't know. And that's why I do think it would look, I mean, I'm with the team here. I'm not going to overpay Devontae Freeman to carry the ball 5 times, 6 times a game. Although I do think if Freeman were healthy and on the team, because he's such a skilled player, you might see a little bit bigger of a role for him.
A lot more than that.
I think so.
Yeah, for sure. But he wouldn't.
I think so.
It would be basically
but
like
still,
this.
Right, Miles.
It's Miles Sanders' show.
Mm-hmm.
You're still looking at 15, 18 touches, no matter who they bring in. But Freeman it's going to be situational. It's his usual carries he would get per game.
Right.
Then if they're up big, he could finish it out. Give Miles, because Freeman's a good pass catcher.
Right.
Give Freeman.
You might see less of Boston Scott if you had.
You could,
Devontae
sure.
Freeman.
Good point. You're right. You could. But the bottom line is it's Miles Sanders' show, and this kid's, they think he's special. They think he has a chance to be elite. You don't limit potential elite running backs to 8 to 10 carries per game. That's nonsense. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I think what happened is when Peterson said that, he was just trying to do what he knew. If our media here sometimes asks questions which they already know the answer to. So what happened was Doug got asked about his running back situation. Oh, you guys know I love the committee. And they went with it. They thought, that's what's going to happen. Miles Sanders is going to be a committee. No, he's not. Doug just said what they wanted to hear. That's not the way there's not going to be, although Doug looks at a committee a little different than most people do.
Right.
If you looked at Geoff, if you looked at Brian Westbrook's touches after Deuce Staley left,
right,
he averaged over 20 touches over a 4-year span. Most people don't know that. I was shocked when I looked it up a couple weeks ago just to see what happened when people were saying there was the committee. There was no committee. Despite Brian's issues with his surgically repaired knee, he still averaged over 20 touches over 4 years. So I think sometimes we need to take a little bit better look about the reality than the perception.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to make a prediction on Killins because he has so much speed.
He does.
He's the type of guy that in the preseason games is going to look like Henry Josie 2.0 or whatever running back we can all remember that just shined in the preseason. This guy is going to become the fan favorite.
Oh, boy.
And people are going to love him. And he's going to average like 7.3 yards per carry on like
Henry Josie.
And people are going to call the Eagles idiots for cutting him and putting him on the practice squad. But that's my prediction of what's going to happen. And that's no knock on Killins. It's just more of a I've seen this before type thing. And we'll see. He can prove me wrong. Maybe he'll be good. But that's my prediction for Adrian Killins.
All right, so this is Pat's second question, and it's pretty unique. I never really thought about it, but in the hypothetical situation where Rasul Douglas stays with the team, I understand it's more likely he is traded or released. Could he potentially be used situationally because of his size and ball skills? For instance, in the red zone or even against some big possession receivers where Avonte Maddox's lack of size might hurt him the most.
Adam, I can't remember. I remember in 2017 when Darby got hurt, Jim did have this kind of rotational thing going on with outside corner. He would use Patrick Robinson in base, but then he would use Jalen Watkins at certain times. And then he would also use Rasul Douglas at certain times. So it's not beyond Jim to have different roles. But I always felt back then when he was doing it, it's because they were young and he was trying to find out more about them and put them in positions. I think by this time he knows what he's got in Rasul Douglas. So if Rasul's on the team magically, I don't think that they're quote unquote looking to find a role for him unless there's either injuries or someone's not playing well on the outside.
So
like,
right
I don't
now,
know if he's your red zone cornerback just because he's tall.
Yeah, you don't really do that. Someone asked us last year about Arcega-Whiteside when he was struggling. Could you just use him in the red zone? You could, but that's really not why you drafted him.
Right.
Getting back to, because right now, let's look at the cornerback position. It's right now, it's Jones and Maddox competing for one spot on the outside, and obviously Slade's on the other side. That's 3 guys. Roby Coleman's your nickel. That's 4. Then after that, it's probably 3 guys competing for one job. Douglas, LeBlanc, Trevor Williams. Prince Smith could run, but he's just
don't forget about my boy Prince Smith.
He could run. I mean, he's here because he can run.
Right.
I don't see any kind of red zone role. I just don't see it. You play the guys. I have not seen a specialty role in a cornerback for any team. Maybe someone could point it out if you saw it before. We'll be happy to talk about it. I just have never seen that before. He is tall, but Rasul can never sustain any excellence. He was OTA superstar last year. It was like, wow, talking to the Eagles about him, the light seemed to go on. And then wildly inconsistent during the preseason. Training camp was up and down, and then regular season more bad than good. And you just, like you said, Geoff, it's year 4. You've already, what you kind of have in him.
Absolutely. So to me, I mean, even having a discussion about Rasul Douglas at this point is like talking about, a guy who's on the team, who's probably not going to be on the team. And I just can't see a specific role being carved out.
He has size. That's all he has to contribute right now is size.
Yeah.
And he's got to be now. One thing I do want to mention before we move on to the next question, because of all the changes, you've got a new defensive backs coach. You've got unbelievable depth on the D line. And now they're hoping better D line coaching. As we've been outlining for 2 or 3 months now, there may be some adjustments on the way that Schwartz thinks. He now has a true man cover corner in Slay. Now, if they go to more man and not only just playing man, but man travel, or because Rasul Douglas, when he's played well, it's when they played man and he can use his length. So we'll see. The only way I see him making it is if they play if they up their degree of man coverage here, maybe he makes it. But right now he's on the outside looking in as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Before we get to our next question, Hunter, I want to stop here and thank our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fan experience with their coverage of the 76ers, the Phillies, the Flyers, the Eagles. They do great podcasts. Their motto is for the fans, by the fans. So go out and check out some of their great coverage and their great content at PHLSportsNation.com. And now we're going to pause real quick for a word from our great sponsors. All right, we're back to finish this off with our last question submitted, I believe, through the website. So go ahead, Hunter, and please ask away.
Given how the roster is constructed, who would you say is the backup single high safety behind Rodney McLeod?
That's an awesome question.
Wow. I don't think they have one.
Really
well, I don't see. The thing is with Will Parks, we need to get more clarity on how they're going to use him. Is he going to is he going to do both? Is he going to play center field or is he going to play in the box? We think Mills is going to play in the box. So how are they going to play big nickel a lot? We don't know yet. We're not. They didn't have an off season. And then where's Kayvon Wallace kind of fit in here? They have Marcus Epps, who did play a little bit after he's claimed off waivers, Geoff. So it's a great question. We just don't. I don't know yet, unless you know. I have not heard yet.
How about Avonte Maddox?
He did it before when he filled in. Well, he filled in for Rodney 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah,
and he played. Yeah. And he played fairly well at that position. And people.
It was so funny story. Geoff and I. Yeah, it was me, you, and Bill Osborne. It was our first year doing the show in 2018, and we wanted to know who was going to fill in for Rodney. We must have took 6 guesses. We all got it wrong. We didn't know that because they kept it quiet that Maddox took snaps at safety because he was so smart. Schwartz said, "You know what? I'm going to put somebody in there. At least we'll be able to execute what I'm telling him to do. He would all understand it." And yeah, he had some moments where he did a really good job. He was swimming upstream because he hadn't played it before. But that would be my guess. And obviously, if they did that, then Jones would have to go in there. If Maddox is starting at outside corner and Rodney got hurt, then obviously Sidney Jones would start on the outside and Maddox would go to free safety.
Yeah.
Look, they don't have – look, the good thing is they've addressed the safety position for the future. And if Parks really works out, they're going to be in great shape because they'll bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have a lot of questions. This team has so much upside, but I don't want to call it downside. They have a lot of ifs and maybes, and if this happens,
yeah, they have a lot of depth concerns.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, the one thing we would say about the Eagles going into the year is that, man, did they have depth? And they did. A lot of people – it's like people are myopic sometimes, because I heard a couple of times last year when the Eagles are struggling, what about all that depth? What about all they clearly don't have that depth? And I kept saying, if they didn't have the depth that they have, they wouldn't even be close to one game under 500 or one game over 500 right now. They'd be terrible. But the fact that they did have depth at a lot of positions enabled them to kind of stay afloat until they made their December rally. This team, I don't think it's as deep right now. I think if they had major injuries again at a lot of areas like safety, like corner, like offensive line, I think they'd be in a little bit more trouble this time.
I would say this. They're way deeper at safety.
What?
Well, no, just hear me out here. Just hear me out. Potentially they're deeper at safety. But we don't know until they get on the field. Well, they got to get on the field, though.
They only have 4. They have 4 safeties.
McLeod, Mills, Parks, Kayvon Wallace, and your guy Marcus Epps. Who knows?
No, I'm not counting Marcus Epps. You're not doing that to me. How's that compared to Malcolm, Rodney?
Remember, it was bad. It was bad behind those guys last year. Marcus Epps
you know what? That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's because after the starting 2, they didn't have
big nickel. Remember Andrew Sandejo? They had to cut him. They
cut Sandejo. You're right. By the end of the year, you're right. They were not. I forgot about that.
I probably overrated it, but here's where they're deeper. No team is deeper at D tackle than this team. My God,
that's true.
They're like, actually, if Raycroft Williams is as good as they think he is,
because
they had a very draftable grade with him. And Anthony Rush was a pleasant surprise to them, and Ridgeway and Jackson, Hargrave and Cox. Yeah. They're a sort of embarrassment of riches. They're unbelievably deep.
Yeah.
They're better off there. So Geoff, actually, this is before we get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they not? Where are they worse, and where are they better off?
From depth or talent?
Depth.
Well, from the end of last year, yeah, they're a little bit deeper at safety, but not much. So I don't put a whole lot. I almost even corner. They are not as deep, right? I mean, you're trading Darby for Slay. You're better in talent, but you're not deep. You got Maddox, and after that, it's a bunch of question marks.
So
not deep at linebacker.
No, they're about they don't have that veteran. So they're weaker, quite frankly. I mean, they don't have a solid start on it right now until they prove it. Getting back to corner, they don't have what I call acceptable depth.
Right.
Sidney Jones has not proven for his first 3 years that you could depend on him. This is the first time that Maddox may potentially be a start on the outside for a prolonged period of time. Slay should be a star.
Yeah.
Roby Coleman should do a good job at slot corner. But as far as backups on the outside, you just don't have any answers.
Well, they're thinner at running back. Clearly, you don't have some of Jordan Howard.
Yep.
Is it safe to say there's probably at least three players that are going to be on the 53-man roster that are not on the team right now?
Running back,
linebacker,
okay. Potentially linebacker. We'll see. They need go ahead.
And safety. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in like a Corey Graham like safety. I
don't think so, because you've got Mills, Slay. McLeod, Mills, Parks, Kayvon Wallace.
That's 4.
Well, yeah, you're not going to keep 5.
They kept 5 last year because they kept Rudy Ford.
He only plays special teams.
True, but they've normally had 3 reliable safeties. Last year it was McLeod, it was Sandejo,
the big nickel guy, right?
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
I'm not saying that. All right, look, I think they're going to bring in a safety. I'm not sure he'll make the team.
I don't see it.
But I've not definitely 2. I think 2 people for the 53 are not on the team yet. Running back and linebacker.
Linebacker's interesting.
That's true, because they do have a lot of young guys they want to see.
They want to
play.
take a look at him, but you and I have said Davion Taylor's not having a significant role this season, right? We agree
Not
on
on
that.
defense, correct? Yes.
Right. So right now it's Gary, T.J. Edwards, Riley,
Mm-hmm.
and Jatavis Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see about Olsen. They're very excited about because he had good college shape. He just ran slowly.
Yeah.
That he could he could push for it, but they don't have that veteran. I mean, you could call Duke Riley a veteran, but he's really not. He's on his rookie contract. So I don't disagree with that. I mean, it's a fair point. I've not heard it. My sense would be that they're just going to go with these rookies to compete for primary backup jobs. Driscoll. Well, when I say rookies, I mean first and second year players. Yeah. Render, Herbig, Driscoll. Pryor obviously is definitely playing into it. Opeta, we'll see. Mailata obviously is on the team. I do believe the upside of this team is way better than last year because they have addressed the receiver position. But I should have made this clear, and this is my fault. A couple shows ago when I was like, "Oh yeah, they're great there. They got all the speed." Until they get on the field, you really don't know. That's the one thing I've learned from talking to coaches, Geoff, around the NFL the last couple weeks. And one of the reasons why some teams, although the coaches are allowed to go back, they're not. They don't have players in there. Why would they go back? They're not learning anything.
Right. No, it's a good point.
So that's where that is.
All right. We're going to finish it up there. I want everybody to know that you've got a great mailbag up on the website, InsideTheBirds.com. So everybody check that out. Also, starting this week, Andrew DeCecco, who writes for InsideTheBirds.com, is going to start doing a series where he's profiling all of the Eagles division opponents, the Giants, Redskins, and Cowboys, and he's breaking them down differently. He's not going to tell you the obvious stuff. Andrew's really great at the draft. He's really good at, analyzing the young players who are coming up in this league. So he's gone through all the teams and pointed out some of their players on the rise, some of the guys who are probably on the way down, and just given a really good outlook. So I think the first one is going to be the Giants. So that's already written, and we're going to put it on the website soon. So make sure you go to InsideTheBirds.com soon and check out the series we have beginning from Andrew DeCecco, beginning with the Giants.
One thing before we get out of here, we'll announce it within the next 48 hours. We have two shows coming out that are really super cool. I don't even want to give away what we're doing. You and I have talked about who we're going to get on these shows here, but we're going to do something really, really cool. But I have to get it confirmed that this guy's able to do it. And that's all I'm going to say. But these next two shows, after this one, the show for Thursday and the show for the following Monday are going to be phenomenal off the hook. We'll let you know. We'll let you know probably Monday or Tuesday. So stay tuned for that.
Definitely stay tuned for that. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody, and now our question asker. Did a great job. Make sure you check out his YouTube page, Sports Talk with Broads, and check out the podcast that he does with former Villanova basketball star Darrell Reynolds. It's called Processed, and it's available on all major podcast platforms and on YouTube. So check out Processed, and then check out Hunter on Twitter at Broads81. Thanks to our friends at 97.3 ESPN. Download their free mobile app so you can hear all of us do football at 4 Monday through Friday on 97.3 ESPN. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.